What's wrong with comedians? They've become so brazen over the years, telling on themselves, admitting to some of the worst crimes, but since Diddy's been in the news for his crimes, someone needs to bring up these people. I'm not the first to cover any of this, but it definitely needs to be acknowledged, and this information has been available for years for some of these guys, and yet nothing has happened to them. Others have exposed themselves more recently, but it's so insane that they got away with admitting this stuff and nothing ever happens to them. They don't get cancelled, it doesn't become a big deal, and if by some miracle it actually does, they can just play it off as some kind of joke, like Brad Williams and Bobby Lee did, who both admitted that they've raped people. Brad Williams clearly didn't realise that he was admitting to rape when he did that show. It was someone else on the show who had pointed it out to him.
But he's getting blown.
So she was. So she's in the back, and Mencia's married. He's not gonna do anything. So he turned off all the lights, and then sent me in. And then I started hooking up with the girl, and it went for a good 15 minutes before she realized that, I mean, Mencia's tiny, but he shouldn't have stubby arms like that. And then finally she realized that she was having sex with me.
That's kind of, I feel like that's like a rape story.
Not in a technical sense.
I think technically it is. Well, I hope this was over 7 years ago.
It was. The statute of limitations are good.
It was good being here. Nice knowing you, Brad.
Brad Williams clearly didn't realise he was admitting to rape when he did that show. He just thought it was a funny story. It was someone else on the show who pointed it out to him. And Bobby Lee just thought it was funny that he raped a child in Tijuana and even compared her to Natalie Portman in the Professional movie, who was 13, by the way, at the time.
After the restaurant, we would go to Tijuana, and I went by myself one night, and there was all this military in Adelita, so there was no girls walking around, so I went in the back of Adelita, which is this alleyway called Hooker Alley, and we don't know how old they are, and they really don't know how old, so they're judging me.
No.
And I was also 23.
Sure.
So I walked down Hooker Alley, and the girl at the end of this alley looked like Natalie Portman. You know,
okay.
From The Professional.
Yes.
From The Professional, not from Star Wars.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
like The Professional, you know what I mean? And then we went to this place called the Miami Hotel. Okay, I'm gonna just say this real quick before I even get into these two stories. Number one, I want to say people that are listening right now that God punished me for this.
Oh, okay. Good.
The machete to the neck was punishment for my deed, you know, of this Natalie Portman girl.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I take her to this place called Miami Hotel. I make love to her, right?
Boy.
The moon through the curtains shine on her face. She was crying.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
My
And she had snot bubbles.
God.
Snot bubbles? She had snot bubbles, and she was crying, right? And I felt so bad that I power fucked her afterwards.
Wow.
So I can get it over with. So then that's the first part of the story.
Those two are pretty big in the comedy world, and yet this information hasn't affected their careers at all. To be fair, Brad Williams mostly does stand-up, so it wasn't going to affect him that much anyway. But Bobby Lee just did the Borderlands movie alongside Kevin Hart, Jack Black, Cate Blanchett, and Jamie Lee Curtis. Those are huge names in the industry, and yet it hasn't become a big story. And then there's Joey Diaz, who I believe hasn't apologised or explained his comments on forcing young female comedians to suck his dick for stage time, which was said on an early Joe Rogan episode, so it's available and anyone could find it, but since it's old, most people haven't seen it or heard him say that, and even if they did, it's Joey Diaz, so people are just going to let it slide because they like him.
Of money.
She's lucky she paid $100. I had girls sucking my dick and giving me coke from Chewy. You think I'm fucking kidding you? Fuck yeah, you gotta suck my dick to get up in the belly room. I'll make a call for you. That's the fucking gateway into coming to Hollywood. Everybody knows that.
How many girls did you have do that?
Oh, 20 of them. I had this little blonde open mic chick dog that used to come up to the Comedy Store with a 20 and just take me up to the belly room and suck my dick, then go do her set. She was tremendous.
Wow.
She finally freaked out. When she got to Hollywood, bro, she was beautiful. And when she left, she had dirty fucking, her nails were dirty. And then a year later, she wrote me a letter to the Comedy Store. You cocksucker, you broke me. I kept shooting sperm balls in her fucking ear ball. Every time she went down, vaya pa la pinga. It ain't broken until somebody fixes it. You know what
is that?
Those are just a few of the biggest examples, but this trend of comedians self-snitching about horrific crimes continues, as recently David Lucus, who was probably the most frequent and one of the most popular guests on Kill Tony, was on a podcast confessing his crimes with no remorse at all. He calls himself a gorilla pimp, the type that will choke a bitch out.
Bitch, you fucking with a pimp. You expect to get slapped and you expect to get cheated on. Gorilla pimps ain't no joke, bro.
What is a gorilla pimp? Just like a strong pimp?
Yeah, like that means he beating bitches, choking hoes. I strangle a bitch.
To death?
To the brink of death. Yeah. That bitch will see the light, then I bring her back.
Yeah.
I'll be like,
get your ass.
Which leads into his story, which for some reason he thought was a good idea to tell, and it's about a previous relationship he once had. And before he even goes into it, he asks what the statute of limitations is on violence. Now, any smart person would stop here and not add another detail to the story. You would just play it off as a joke and move on, but he's a regular on Kill Tony, so you can't expect even an average IQ, especially with how he looked on Matan's podcast recently. So he spills the beans about what's been going on and what's been eating him up inside.
One time, I used to be a crazy boyfriend, bro. I used to be like one of them little jealous niggas. And she was taking a shower when she was about to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you about to go out and be a hoe, this, that, and the other. I was like, I might as well just stop fucking with your ass. And then she said something like, I was like, yeah, I was talking shit like, yeah, you gonna miss this dick. And she was like, I can always suck another. Or something like it set me off, and I grabbed that bitch from behind her neck, bro. And that bitch, I choked her, dog, and she passed out. She passed out of my arm in literally like 5 or 6 seconds. Scared.
Oh my gosh.
I was so scared. I thought
was that in the shower?
She was drying off.
Drying off?
Yeah, bro. She collapsed in my arm. That was scary as a bitch, bro.
What'd you do?
As soon as she hit the ground, she woke back up. I started crying.
Did you drop her, or you sort of set her on the ground?
Bro, I literally, like, imagine you choking somebody, and before you know, they just pass out.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I wasn't prepared to catch a body.
Right.
To catch her falling body.
Literally and figuratively.
Man, listen, bro. When she fell to the ground and she woke up, she was like, what happened?
What'd you say? You slipped in the bathtub?
I told her that she was yelling, and then she just fell out.
What did she say? How'd she take that?
She believed it, but then like when we later on down the line, I told her I had choked her, bro. Like when she fell to the ground, we both started crying. I was crying, baby, bro. I was literally scared, dog. Like in that.
What would you have done if you accidentally killed her or something? What would you have done? Try to hide the body or go to the police?
I probably would have told the police we were having kinky sex because she was naked. They would have believed it.
Right.
Like, we was having kinky ass sex.
He and his girlfriend used to argue all the time, and one time she made a snarky comment about sucking other guys off, which sent him into a rage, which resulted in him choking her unconscious. Now, there's no joke, there's no instance in the story where it could even be interpreted as a joke. This really happened. He choked a woman unconscious. He choked a woman to the point that she didn't even know what happened to her, and no one gives a shit. I doubt this will affect him anytime soon. The Kill Tony audience will continue to suck his dick because he's a killer in the comedy world like Joe Rogan. And then William Montgomery, another Kill Tony regular, is on this podcast with him and doesn't know how to react. At first he laughed and thought that this was going to be some kind of joke, but as it goes on he just looks uncomfortable. I think it starts to set in that this is real and not a joke for him, and you can tell because he has this semi-laughing, semi-concerned look on his face, but these two will probably continue to hang out after this, and it won't ever be a problem, which makes me question the manhood of William Montgomery. If a guy tells you something like this, and you don't even get mad at him, are you even a man? He should have fucking strangled him right there. And Tony Hinchcliffe, if he hears about this, isn't going to say anything because it's all about the money and his brand, and David Lucus is a huge part of that. If David Lucus does ever get an offer though, like a movie or SNL, and this somehow comes to light, they'll drop him, and like all of the other comedians that this has happened to, they'll act like this is just cancel culture and not his own admission, like he didn't go on a podcast and admit all this shit. I just don't get why you would ever admit this publicly, especially on a podcast for the whole world to see. He says this with no shame either. Like, you're not even going to attempt to cover this up by just shutting the fuck up. You just tell the whole world. Not only does he not show remorse for what he did to this woman, but it's part of his act. He's done jokes, quote unquote, about this very thing. So he gets his inspiration from real life.
It's hard to date white women, though. Because, like, you can't really, like, discipline them the way you want to. It's like as soon as you put your hands around their neck, they turn red. It's the weirdest. That's why I like black girls, man. You can beat the out of them. They don't even get black eyes. It's like, call the cops, bitch. Ain't nobody gonna believe you anyway. Already unplugged the Ring camera. I believe in domestic violence, man. I do. You know what I'm saying? A lot of guys don't do domestic violence right, man. Like, they be hitting that girl in the nose and the lip, you know, leaving her bloody and you can't do that, man. You gotta hit these hoes on top of the head. You gotta fucking Donkey Kong a bitch sometimes, man. It's like, you gonna have to get a CAT scan to prove I beat on you. Man. Ain't no proof.
The only sane explanation for any of this is that he knew that he was going to be exposed for this at some point, maybe by the woman or someone who knew about this, threatened to expose him, so he's trying to get ahead of the story. That's the only thing that makes sense. Why else would you ever admit any of this? But it just shows the level of degeneracy that's going on in the comedy world. These are the people that operate in that world, and stand-up is only the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the entertainment industry. It gets worse the higher you go, so you can only imagine what they're hiding. This won't be the end of David Lucus, but it's definitely a piece in the puzzle.